Are you a parent, or will you one day be a parent? Are you, or do you aspire to be a leader or a teacher or a coach or someone who inspires people? Or perhaps you just want to expand your mind a little bit. If so, I guarantee you'll find this clip really, really interesting. I'm Rowan from Your Life Designed. Check this out. In this video, I'm going to share with you some information on the fixed versus growth mindset. Now, this is probably the biggest factor that separates the successful people and people who thrive on a challenge and find fulfillment from challenge from the rest. Now, I'm going to give you some takeaways. I'll give you some information on how to instill the growth mindset into a child, and this will help their development hugely, and also how we can improve our own growth mindset. Now, before I go into the definition of what fixed mindset versus growth mindset actually is, I'll share a study with you that kind of spells it out a bit. It was done by Claudia Mueller and Carol Dweck of Columbia University, and they got a big group of kids and they gave them quite a challenging puzzle. Now, after the kids did this puzzle, they kind of broke them into two groups and gave them two different sorts of praise. Now, to the first group, they praised them by saying things like, "Congratulations, you did really well, you're talented, you must be good at this sort of thing." Now, that's very fixed mindset praise because it focuses on the outcome and it kind of portrays intelligence as a fixed thing. To the second group, they gave them praise like, "Oh, congratulations, you did really well, you must have tried really hard, or you really applied yourself." Now, that's growth mindset praise because it focuses on the process. Now, three interesting results that came out of this study was that after they did that first puzzle, the kids who were given the fixed mindset praise, we'll call them the fixed mindset kids, after they did the first puzzle, they wanted to do an easier puzzle. They elected to do an easier puzzle when given the choice. Whereas the growth mindset kids wanted to challenge themselves. They wanted to do a puzzle that was harder. The second thing to come out of it was that when they did a few other puzzles and came back to the original puzzle, the majority of the fixed mindset kids did worse the second time around, whereas the majority of the growth mindset kids did better the second time around. And the third thing that came out of the study, which is I find this really interesting, was that the fixed mindset kids were 3 times more likely to lie about their results than the growth mindset kids. That's because with their fixed mindset, they didn't really have a better way of dealing with what they perceived to be a failure, so they lied about it. Now, I find this study really interesting because it really goes to show that the information that we feed to kids and adults alike can have a very strong impression on them, but also an ongoing effect moving forward. I'm sure by that last study, you've got a better idea of what this whole growth versus fixed mindset thing is all about. Growth mindset people, they like being educated, they like growth, they understand that learning is a part of the process. They also understand that failure is a part of the process, and this doesn't necessarily get them down. They focus more on the process rather than the end goal. Fixed mindset people tend to believe that your talents, your smarts, your abilities are set in stone. You've got what you've got and that's it. Because of this, they're constantly needing to try to prove themselves, and they don't take to challenges very well. Also, at times of hardship or failure, they tend to crumble. They don't handle it very well. Now, this is bad because, through life there's 2 certainties aside from death and taxes. One is that you're going to have successes at various times, and the other is that you're going to have failures and hardships at various times. So for a fixed mindset person, this makes life all the harder. In another study in 2011, scientists measured the brain activity that was going on in kids who were shown a problem. This problem had errors in it, solvable errors, but errors nonetheless. Now, what they found was the kids who had fixed mindsets, there was not a lot of activity going on in their brains. The scans were showing, just the regular amount of activity. Whereas the kids who had a growth mindset, their brains were on fire. It was like New Year's Eve fireworks going off on these scans, because they were looking at these problems and they thrived on the challenge. They were looking to find solutions straight away. You know, their brains were fired up. Now, this study really shows to me that before kids even express themselves and even express oh, this is too hard, or, oh, I like a challenge, there's stuff going on in their brains, or perhaps not going off in their brains. But this can be changed. Now, I used to believe that there would always be some battlers in a class, some people who just didn't do very well, on my train of thought being that, you know, some kids are smart and some just aren't. Now, one teacher who has proven that there doesn't need to be this big divide between the smart kids and the not so smart kids was a Stanford graduate. She created equality in her class, but beyond that, she took these, by using the kind of growth mindset and instilling a growth mindset into these kids, she made them excel. She took by the way, I'm paraphrasing this from a talk by Carol Dweck, who I mentioned earlier, who talks about growth versus fixed mindset. Anyway, in this, what this teacher did, this Stanford graduate, she took a Harlem kindergarten class. Now, this class was battling, you know, a lot of them couldn't hold a pencil for the first few months, there were tantrums galore, but she took them to the 95th percentile in the state achievement test, I think it was called. Which I'm surprised there is an achievement test for kindergarten kids, but anyway, apparently there is. She also took a 4th grade class who were also really struggling in the South Bronx. She took them from battling away to near the top of the state for the state math test. So she did this by instilling that growth mindset into kids and letting them know and showing them that if they're facing a challenge, they're not facing a challenge because they're dumb, or they're not facing a challenge because they just can't do it. They're facing a challenge because there's many challenges in life, but you can overcome any of them if you apply yourself. Now, these kids went on to excel and grow, and by having that growth mindset from such a young age, that continues into their adulthood. So, how do we best instill a growth mindset into kids? Well, by praising the process and by praising hard work and by praising progress, that definitely helps to instill the growth mindset. And one of the most powerful words you can use, this is a great takeaway, is using the word yet or not yet. You know, it's not, oh, you failed, it's you can't do it just yet, or you will get it, but just not yet. Just by this simple change in language, we can really help to increase that growth mindset in kids. With my son, this is a silly little example, but I'm trying to get him to brush his own teeth. He's 2 years old. So by each night, sometimes he does it well, sometimes he doesn't do it very well. On the nights that he doesn't do it very well, I say, oh, you know, you tried really hard, mate. You'll do better at it tomorrow night. When he does do it well, I don't say, oh, you're awesome at that. Oh, wow. I say something like, yeah, you did really well. You tried hard tonight. That's great, mate. Well done. So that's just an example of how I'm trying to make a change in my own son. Now, when you're faced with a challenge, how do you respond? If something's just a little bit beyond your abilities, how does it make you feel? What sort of emotions does that stir? Say a friend came to you and said, hey, we're going to the ice skating rink later today, going with my ice hockey buddies, do you want to come? Does that make you feel, oh, I would never go with people who play ice hockey, they must be awesome? Or does it make you feel, oh yeah, I'd go with them, I'll learn heaps? Or say, for example, at your workplace, if someone goes away and leaves you with some challenging work. I don't know if you've ever had that happen to you before, but how would that make you feel? Do you get nervous about the challenge, or do you kind of get excited about the challenge, that you can prove yourself? What about if your partner came home and said, hey, those tango classes we were talking about, and you said you had 2 left feet? Well, I've enrolled us. Hey, we start next Tuesday. What sort of emotions would that stir? Would that stir anger or motivation or frustration or excitement? We all respond differently to these, to a challenge. So yeah, think about how you respond when you're faced with a challenge. I've heard from so many sources and so many people that 80% of success comes down to attitude and only 20% aptitude. So I'm sure you can tell by now that it's the people with the growth mindset that have the best attitude and hence the best chance of succeeding in whatever aspect of life is important to them. So how do we enhance, create, better our growth mindset? The first step is, as always, awareness. Awareness about your weak spots, the soft spots in your belief system. For example, you might have had thoughts like, I'm good at English, but I've never been good at maths. I'm good at planning, but I've never been good at executing. I'm good at buying my partner gifts, but I've never been good at comforting them. Now, all these I'm not good at parts or phrases, they're all our weak spots. So it's the first step is all about creating awareness about those weak spots. The second step is to realize that our brains, first of all, our brains have already got millions and millions of these connections between synapses. Now, a lot of these connections have been there for many, many years, and a lot of them have to do with our belief system. Now, these connections, they're sturdy and they've been there a long time, but they're not permanent. Our brains are these amazing plastic, malleable things that we can transform and shape to whatever we want. For example, I was just recently listening to Tony Robbins' audiobook, Awaken the Giant Within, I think it's called, and he tells this story. I think it was when he first came into money and he started eating, and he had these oversized plates and overstocked, and he just couldn't stop eating. So he came to a realization that he needed to change his habit. Something needed to change. So to change his belief and his habits around needing to finish everything on his plate, what he did was he got his plate of food, ate it until he was full and content, but not overeating, and then he pushed it away and worked himself into a state straight away. So he got up, he danced, he put music on, and he brought about the emotions of joy so that he created the association between not overstuffing himself and being happy. So he did this time and time again, one after the other, to create these new channels in his brain, these new pathways between synapses. And soon after that, he was able to lose all that weight that he'd put on. So the third and final part is to embrace this saying when it comes to your beliefs. If you always do what you've always done, then you'll always get what you've always got. So if you always hold on to any of those fixed mindset beliefs, then you'll always have them. If you embrace and you take on a new growth mindset where you enjoy challenges and you accept failure as a part of the process and you enjoy the process and you're into growth and development and betterment and all that sort of stuff, then I guarantee your life will improve in leaps and bounds. I hope you got something out of this clip. If so, please like, comment, subscribe to this channel. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Facebook, then yeah, please like, leave a comment, get in touch. Have an awesome day. Catch you later. Bye.